Hi there. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mrs. Jameson. I'm an 11th grade English teacher at Nazareth High School, and you may have met me a couple of weeks ago when I came into your 10th grade English classrooms to talk to you about your options for next year. One of those options I told you about was a course that I teach called AP English Language and Composition. I do refer to that as Lang, so you'll hear me use that term quite a bit. I talked to you about several options, but this is the one that is unique to me, and it's the one that I know the most about. So I thought I would give you a little bit more information about this course in case you were absent that day, or in case you just wanted to revisit some of those thoughts now that you are actually moving ahead to scheduling. So I just created this little video to tell you a little bit more about my course. So first of all, you're probably wondering a couple of things about the AP class. You probably want to know what kinds of things we're going to be studying, what the curriculum is. You want to know about the work that we do. You want to know about the summer work. That's always a big question. You might not have ever taken an AP class before and don't know a whole lot about the AP exam and how that all works. You might want to know more specifically about yourself. You know, what kind of students do well in this class and what qualities I'm looking for in a student for this class, and you might want to know where you can get more info. So I'll cover all of those questions in the next couple of minutes. So first of all, the things that we read and study in AP Lang. Primarily we study rhetoric, which is actually the study of persuasion, more particularly persuasive writing. And we do study the craft of writing in general, not just looking at how arguments work, but how authors craft those texts in order to be persuasive. We do read primarily nonfiction texts in this class. We read a lot of essays, a lot of speeches, a lot of articles, not much in the way of short stories or poetry or novels. That is more literature, and this is a rhetoric focus, which is primarily nonfiction, and I prefer to structure the course around the best material for you in terms of the exam that I'm preparing you for, as well as for a freshman composition course. The cool thing about the essays that we read, the nonfiction text that we read, is that it allows us to cover a whole lot of different topics in time periods. One of the things I really love about it is, you know, nonfiction sounds like it's so boring, but in reality, we read about all kinds of different things, and I think most students agree that there's a little something for everybody. You'll find at least some texts that we're going to read that you're going to have some sort of connection to. One of the other things about this course is I'd really like to focus on conversations about complex issues. A lot of arguments that we read are about issues as opposed to, you know, big themes like you might get in literature. And while there are some similarities, I like to really make sure that we talk about those issues and get used to dealing with sort of big ideas and diverse viewpoints. I think that's really important and will really serve you well, not just on the AP exam, but in college too. The kind of work that you will expect, obviously we do lots of writing. This is a composition course in addition to rhetoric. We write a lot of different types of writing. Sometimes they're responses to what we've read, sometimes we just write paragraphs. We do timed writings as test prep for the AP exam. You have a research paper, and at the end of the year we do a big portfolio. But one thing that you want to consider is that we don't do a lot of huge papers in AP Lang. I think we are better served by doing a lot more writing if we do short writings. These are things that I can evaluate quickly and get back to you. So you might be a little bit surprised that we're not doing a whole bunch of 5 or 6 page papers. We're doing smaller chunks, but we're doing many more of them than you might be used to. We, of course, still will do reading because it is an English class. Mostly what we read is short essays, speeches, and articles. Typically we'll do a novel or two, and that has been dependent upon the year, you know, what novel we do, where it fits in, how it works. That's a possibility, but none of that is set in stone the way the nonfiction texts are. You're probably worried about the summer work, and yes, there is summer work. Most students who have taken this course tell me that this was the best summer work they've ever had, and I'd like to think they're telling me the truth. It's very different from what you're used to. You will read one full-length nonfiction book, and typically what I have students do, and obviously I'm often tweaking this, but typically I will give you a series of related essays in addition to that nonfiction book, and then you write a response to them. Typically 3 or 4 pages, not too intense, and I try to make it on a subject that you guys will find interesting and a refreshing change of pace from what you might be used to. I also ask you to do 2 more things, one of which is to research the AP exam in order to prepare for a discussion that we're going to have the first week of school. And then once we get back to school, you write a reflection, usually 2 pages or so, and that's all of your summer work. I like to think, and from what I've heard students say before, that it's a pretty reasonable summer assignment, and you learn something from it. You may be wondering about the AP exam, particularly if you are not in AP US History this year. Maybe you've never taken an AP test. Basically what the AP exam is most people who take the course take it in May. It is not required. And by taking this AP exam, you have the potential to earn college credit. Now there's 5 possible scores you can get on an AP exam, 1 through 5. And for many schools, earning a 3 on the AP exam signifies that you are qualified in that subject area. So some schools will accept, many schools I would venture, would accept a 3 on the AP exam, which would then allow you to basically test out of freshman composition class at their school. That is really dependent on the college. Some schools will accept credit if you get a 4 or a 5. Other schools, might say that's wonderful that you got that grade, but we want you to take our freshman composition class anyway. So you might want to look into the schools that you're interested in before making a decision on what course to take. There are 2 sections of the AP English Lang exam. One of them is a multiple choice section, typically about 4 or 5 passages of nonfiction text that are very short, and about 55 questions on those. Completely cold read, nothing that you are expected to study or memorize ahead of time. There's also 3 essays. One of them is an argument essay, and one of them is an analysis essay, and one of them is a synthesis essay. You're already familiar, obviously, with the first 2. If you're not familiar with synthesis, you definitely will be by the end of the course. We do some test prep in class and in Eagle Block. I don't like to make the entire course feel like it's a test prep class, but at the same time, this is a major goal for many students, and I think it's important that you feel prepared and competent and ready to take this test if you choose to do so. Keep in mind that the exam and getting the credit for that exam is not the only goal of the course. So I do have students who take the course and don't take the exam, and I have students who have taken the course and taken the exam and their college has not granted them credit. And the important thing to understand is that even if one of those 2 scenarios is the case, you're still coming out of this a better writer. You're still going into college being more prepared for college writing than you would have if you didn't take the course. Most students tell me they find they're miles ahead of their peers when it comes to writing in college just because they took this class. So that's something to consider as well. It's not necessarily all about the exam. Oftentimes students wonder, what does it take to do well in this class? So I sort of sat down and I thought, what do I expect out of my students in AP Lang? What do I want to see in a good AP student? Certainly being a good writer is helpful, but the point of taking the class is to become a better writer. So I don't necessarily only want the best and most perfect writers in my course. I want people who want to learn, and I want people who are going to be open to that. So to me, the most important attributes of a student in my Lang class is I want somebody who's self-motivated, who's going to do their work. I want somebody who is trying to actively improve, somebody who's going to come in and say, not just accept the grade I gave them, but say, what can I do to improve? What can I do better next time? And wants to learn about becoming better at writing. I want students who are curious about the world and willing to participate in conversations about it. This class is very heavy on conversation and class discussion, and that only works when I've got enthusiastic students who are sort of putting themselves out there and wrestling with ideas. I also want students who are willing to explore complexities, who are not single-minded, who are open to those diverse viewpoints and new ideas, because understanding a whole lot of viewpoints and a whole lot of stakeholders' opinions is going to make you a better, more reasoned, more credible writer. And so to me, that's really important, that you can entertain other opinions and to hear and accept and talk about and argue with each other about those ideas. I think that is really vital to success in this course. So that's the quick rundown. If you want to get some more information, you can stop by my room 349 right next to Miss Schaefer, right across from Miss Rocky. Or you can see your guidance counselor. And if you want, either one of us, obviously me or your guidance counselor, will sit down and talk to you about your personal concerns that you might have about your abilities in the course. And I also have a course overview. I created a list of like what are the units that we study, and I can hand you a copy of that. Your guidance counselor should have copies of that as well if you'd rather go to them other than me. Bottom line, I love teaching this course. I'm excited about it every day. I'm very, very passionate. I'm always working to change and to tweak and improve what we're doing. And I'm so excited at the opportunity to get more students to take the course and to grow the program from there. So I really hope you'll consider it. And I hope to see you next year in AP Lang.